I'm not a therapist, but we're going to be talking about relationships today. Also, this is my first time really editing something like this. And please be nice. I didn't watch through all of the footage because I just got too lazy. So just, if there's some clips that don't make sense, just skip over them. Most of it makes sense. This video was actually, it says it's 19 minutes. It was actually like 26 minutes or 27, and I had to cut it down quite a bit. But yeah, enjoy. Hi guys, welcome back. I decided that I wanted to talk about relationships. I didn't really know, I've talked about relationships before, dating and intimacy, but that was pre me getting in a relationship, and now I'm out of one. So I kind of wanted to just I guess share what I've learned. The good and the bad. So again, I'm talking about things that are super personal because I feel like people love to talk about or love to hear about other people's experiences, and I'm not going to really dive in super deep. Maybe I will. I might change up the setup, but I really do like that you guys can see my room. Isn't it so cutesy? I made this shit like my baby, so when I'm going to have to move out next year, I'm going to be super sad. Now we can start. Okay, so 1, how do you even recognize your own attachment style? I don't think I actually really recognized, I knew things about obviously how I am in relationships and how I am without being in them. But it definitely was through my previous relationship that it was very, that person was very emotionally aware of their own attachment style, that it kind of made me really dive into my own, because I have dated people associated with people romantically that tend to be extremely avoidant.
Nope.
And that's not, I'm not hating on any kind of attachment style, whether you're avoidant, disorganized, anxious, secure, any of it. I think that attachment styles are all based upon your own environment and your own experiences. And something that I really have thought about is that the way that if you first get in a relationship, obviously everything is through experiences. Your first relationship ever, it goes great. You guys date for years on end. Naturally, you're going to have a very secure attachment style, or at least gain one towards the end, because you and your partner are seem to be very secure about yourselves. Maybe that's just my own perception, but I grew up a very anxious child. I was always scared to even speak my mind, but I kind of just I moved very differently. And now I would say I'm a pretty I wouldn't say that I'm 100% confident, but I'm definitely more it's funny because the last video that I had, I said I don't love myself, and what I meant by that is I don't dislike my physical self or traits about me, but I feel like there are certain different categories on loving yourself, loving yourself so much that you stay completely authentic when you're with someone else. And that was not me for a while. I was always just advocating that I used to be a really big conformist, and I still kind of am. I mean, not now because I'm not in a relationship, but when I was, I definitely did conform myself into a image of something that they would have wanted or they would have liked, because for a long time I always talked. I always like really listened to what people would say about me, like, and especially my own partner. So then it felt like my voice was very limited, because then I felt like I couldn't talk about anything, or I couldn't feel a certain way. I couldn't share a certain experience. So it was kind of just very frustrating for me. And it just kind of made me more anxious. Like something that I noticed in the same patterns that I was doing over and over again. I was always just like such a big advocate for other people, like when they were very anxious regarding their own relationships and they would come to me about it. Like, for example, their a boyfriend or a girlfriend of, this is just like a hypothetical situation, wasn't answering for like 2-3 hours. And I have had my own experiences where I have dated people that were pretty clingy, and I was also clingy with them, because, I would try and move the same way that they would move. So if they wanted to text me like every 2 hours or after a phone call, I would do the same thing. And like, I felt very comfortable doing that. And I'm already naturally like a very clingy person. So the fact that I was able to do that with them made me feel more secure. Like they actually like wanted to talk to me. But that's not always the case. Just because someone doesn't talk to you consistently, or they could text you like a bunch one day or call you a bunch one day and not do the same thing. Like, all relationships are not very linear. And I think like I said, I've had even partners that would just text me like good morning, and then text me like once in the day, like have a good day, and then text me good night, and then that would be it. And I was not necessarily comfortable with that, but that's what I thought in my head at that time, that was like the normal, because they were still like, I was just kind of leeching on to the small amount of effort that they were making, and I just assumed that was the only effort that they were going to put in. And then I maybe needed to just like kind of adjust the way that I was thinking. So when trying to think. So when someone would come up to me during that time period in my life and be like, "Hey, my person has not been answering me for like 2-3 hours," I would be like, "Oh, like 2-3 hours? Like maybe they're just like a little busy. If you still feel like this way, that you're just a little anxious and you want to kind of like, just kind of check in, like I would just wait like an hour or so, and then kind of give yourself time to really think about what you want to formulate or say. But like people should never feel anxious about talking to their partner if they feel like that pull or connection or something is not resonating or sitting right with them or resonating, because usually like I feel like their intuition is correct. Like when I was in relationships and I was dating, I knew if something was off. Like the way that women's intuition literally screams like something's wrong. Like it would just be like, okay, well, they're not answering me for 2 to 3 hours just today, but there's something specifically wrong about today that they're not doing it. Like the vibe feels off. And usually I was always correct. But that doesn't apply to all circumstances. But that is why I had a more like anxious attachment style, because when, I was reading about it, I felt like I needed this constant need of reassurance. And so for a while, I would always like kind of panic if someone took like too long. And it would kind of just be like, I, I don't know. I don't know if it was like there was a conflict, or I felt like I was being ignored, or I'm not being seen. Um, and then it's like, well, then how do you, like I was mentioning earlier, like how do you react after that? Like, do you want to be distant with them and give them that hour, like I said, to kind of formulate what you want to say if they're going to text you back? Like for so long, I was kind of just always advocating for behavior that I was also thinking of. But that's the kind of grace in that situation. Like, you're always going to never listen to your own advice. And I genuinely was not doing that. Like, I would just constantly tell other people that I knew, like in relationships, or even my own partner, you don't need to text me that much. You don't need to do all that. But I do like this a little amount of reassurance. And if they didn't give me that, then it'd be like, I'm still like over analyzing everything. I'm still going to spiral over it. But then it felt like, again, I already made my claims. The partner already knew how I felt, and they proceeded to not listen to me anyway. So then it was like, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, because if they don't want to listen to my voice, I'm not going to talk. So it just kind of became like, it's actually like really sad how that happens, like you advocate your wants and needs and morals in a relationship, and the person can kind of just listen to you, and like, but they're not listening. The ears are on, they're turned on, but the hearing is actually off. So, that's me as an anxious attachment style person. Avoidant people, though. Avoidant. Like I said, I have always been somehow attracted to avoidant people. And, only some of them have ever actually admitted that to me, that they have an avoidant attachment style. I've dated people that, haven't texted me for days on end, and I would show up to their house and be like, what are you doing? Why are you not talking to me? And I'm not ashamed of it, because, if they don't want to put time and effort into me, I don't need to do the same thing. And the fact that I have to make that effort to just kind of get a response from you, it's like, okay, like 2 days is crazy. Like, I actually dated someone that did not talk to me for 2 fucking days. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? So you know what I did? I had my grandma drop me off at his house. And this was during COVID, by the way. So I'm already like spiraling in itself, that it's like, but yeah, pretty much all of like my actual like long-term relationships that I've had, or longer, they're usually pretty avoidant. Like, I don't know what the thing is about them not wanting to talk to me. But it was just kind of, that's how the cookie crumbled. And obviously the cookie didn't crumble that far off from the plate, because, I was cleaning up them crumbs. I was sweeping them up. Yeah. So I don't know. I learned a lot in like my past, like few, like my most recent relationship and the relationship before that. I did learn a lot, about like, how to really feel like you could still authentically be yourself, while also like trying to pertain to them. And, the thing that I really enjoyed about like how like the relationship ended is that, that big shift that came. I just finally am trying to like recognize that like I need to stop like chasing people. And, for such a long time, I always was just kind of like something. I wanted some kind of like companion. And especially recently, like I always wanted some kind of like companion, because the people that like all my friends that I'm surrounding myself with majority of the time are in happy, loving relationships. And it definitely is difficult, like really sitting there and like listening to how like beautiful their relationship is, and you're struggling even to just keep one, or like, you should never have to beg someone to actually love you. And the fact that I had to do that, in pretty much every relationship I've ever been in, I'm done. Again, was advocating like, don't chase, you can attract. I was still chasing because I was overly giving something, because that's how to bring it back to like the loving yourself topic. You know, I was overly giving. I was fearing like I was going to be like abandoned. And like I just wanted to feel very close to someone. And, you know, instead of doing that, I was losing that part where I was actually checking in with myself. I needed to really just pertain to myself. Like, no, like, situationships, you know, and I had to, for such a long time, I had to, I thought that love was proving myself worthy of them. Like, I'm moving for them. I'm catching up to their speed, but no one was catching up to my speed. Like, again, the ears were on, but the listening was turned off and not for me. And again, I was not like the greatest Dalai Lama girlfriend ever. And I accept that. And, you know, now I see that like you have to feel safe within yourself before you allow yourself to feel safe with anyone else. And, you know, obviously this has not been like the easiest journey for me. This has obviously not been like the most greatest thing because, you know, like you learn about all like the red flags that you ignored, or you learn about like how much the red flags affected you, but you cared so deeply about that person that you just moved it forward. You were like, there's no way like that it's going to stay this way forever. They said they would change and they have to, right? Because that's what they said. Well, guess what? They are not going to change unless they want to. They're not going to face the consequences of their actions unless they want to. And if they don't want to, then you do not need to be stepping up on their pedestal because they don't want to step up on yours. So, like I said, this journey hasn't been like really easy, but you know, learning about like different attachment styles and you're learning a more like deep intuitive part of yourself that you used to be terrified of, or, you know, you used to invest that into someone else. And now finally you're singling your own self and your own energy. And like eventually down the line, when I want to explore again, or, you know, that's fine. I used to always put like a timeline on everything. Like even like it's very simple, like putting a timeline on when you would want to, when people ask you like, when do you want to get married? Or like, when do you want to have kids? I used to like really think about like, oh, I would want to get married by like 28, 29, if not like the like highest would be like 35. But then people would talk to me that I was in relationships with about this, and then I would conform my opinion around like what they thought, or at least be kind of close, because then I thought that maybe it would make them like me more. Girl, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Don't do that. Okay. Your thoughts are your thoughts. Your feelings are your feelings. If that person does not want to move in the way that you want to, or at least try and move together with you, then, you know, you shouldn't be with that person. And I had to find that out the hard way. But, you know, again, everyone has their own difficulties and their own experiences in relationships. And it's so beautiful when you actually decide that you want to go on that healing journey and really find, and you can still heal with someone else. I'm not saying like you can't grow as a individual with someone else. But there's so many factors. You have to feel like you can be open with that person, like, regarding your own self-worth, your own, like, how intuitive you are with yourself, like self-awareness, all those things. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. I don't know what in the world I'm going to be talking about next. I don't know what I'm going to talk about next. But hope you guys watched till the end. And if you did, thank you. But if you didn't, then that's fine. It's okay. I forgive you. I don't actually. Just kidding. But love you all so much. Me and my cute little 7 subscribers. But thank you for listening, and I hope to talk to you guys soon. Bye.